All right, good morning, guys. We'll go ahead and get started with our briefing for Hurricane Francine. So, in terms of changes, we have had no changes to the track or intensity or any of our local watches warnings since the 4 a.m. advisory. So, everything should be the same as this morning. So, Francine is a Category 1 currently moving to the northeast, and we are slowly seeing an increase in that forward speed as well. Landfall still expected to be sometime late this afternoon into the early evening time. Conditions are going to slowly deteriorate throughout the day today, but those worst conditions are going to be expected mostly this evening and through the first part of tonight. Impacts are going to be impacts include moderate to life-threatening coastal flooding, damaging winds, heavy rain, a few tornadoes possible as well. So here is the latest track forecast and the cone. So Francine is currently a hurricane, like I mentioned. Maximum wind speeds currently sustained at 90 miles per hour and forecast to continue moving northeastward until it makes landfall somewhere along the central Louisiana coast later this afternoon and evening. Here's a look at all of our current watches and warnings. So like I mentioned, no changes. That bright pink in the middle there included the New Orleans Metro, still under a hurricane watch. That's mostly just for us and y'all to kind of help mention that we could see some hurricane force wind gusts in that area as after landfall here later today. So here is a look at the wind threat potential impacts. So areas generally west of I-59 are going to be those areas that should prepare for the potential of damaging winds. So areas along the bayou parishes, some of the river parishes there should prepare for the potential of hurricane force winds and impacts. Damage to trees definitely possible, mostly limbs, tree limbs, but we do want to mention that because the ground is so saturated, the soil is saturated, we could see some uprooting of trees due to that. And then widespread power outages are definitely likely, especially near where the center of Francine tracks. So look at the current storm surge warning, no change. Warning still in effect for the entire coastline and around both of the lakes. Life-threatening storm surge inundation within 24 hours. We're already seeing water levels start to increase here, and that's going to continue through tomorrow. No threats to the federal levee systems, but local levees could be overtopped. All right, and then here is that peak storm surge forecast. So just a reminder that this doesn't include any of the inundation away from the coast. This is just the immediate coast, and you guys can go on NHC's website and look at the inundation map if you would like to see further away from the coast. And then we just want to mention that areas around, especially Lake Pontchartrain and on the Mississippi coast, some of that water is going to take quite a while to recede. So we might see lingering water levels high even after the storm passes. So we just want to make sure that we mention that. Otherwise, no changes since this morning, but the change since yesterday is that area around Lake Pontchartrain and along the Mississippi coast. We increased it slightly to 4 to 6 feet. Then inland flooding impacts, no changes there. We're still expecting, potential for major flooding rain. Flood watch remains in effect through 7 a.m. tomorrow, and the heaviest rain is expected today and tonight. High rainfall rates and saturated soils could quickly result in flash flooding, especially in those urban and poor drainage areas. We're also going to see rises on the rivers, which we'll get to that in a second. But the main impacts are going to be road closures and water evacuations could be necessary. So here's a look at that total rainfall forecast. No changes here either. Widespread totals 4 to 8 expected. Some areas could see up to 10 to 12 locally higher amounts. Exact totals are really going to depend on where those heavier rain bands kind of outside, set up. Locally, most of the rain is going to be today and tonight, but rainfall could linger into a little early tomorrow as well. And then here is a look at that river forecast that I mentioned. So this includes 48 hours of future rainfall. So this should include all of the rainfall that we're going to see from the storm. As you can see, quite a few rivers are going to be expecting minor flooding, especially along the Tangipahoa eastward through the Mississippi coast. And these forecasts are likely to change. It really just depends on where those heavy rain bands set up, like I mentioned earlier. And then tornadoes, several tornadoes are expected somewhere in the outer rain bands of Francine. That's mostly going to be east of the track. So anywhere in that orange area there has the potential for several tornadoes. And then I'm not going to go through the entirety of this here because it's just kind of going over what we just mentioned, but we're very confident in the storm bringing significant to life-threatening impacts across all of our area. Expect scattered to possibly damage to trees. Like I mentioned, since we are so saturated, we could see some uprooting of trees. Life-threatening storm surge is expected, especially today through tomorrow morning. Some local lower levees could be overtopped. Major flooding rain impacts are possible, especially with those heavier rain bands set up like I mentioned. Heaviest rain gonna be sometime today through overnight tonight. And then like I mentioned just now, several tornadoes are gonna be possible, mainly in the eastern parts of our area. And then of course, dangerous and life-threatening marine conditions are likely across all of our coastal waters. All right, does anybody have any questions?
Hi, this is Jackie from Poidra's home. I was just wondering, some of the previous tracks showed landfall on the coast around 1 p.m. Is that still holding, or is it going to be a little later in the afternoon?
It's kind of hard to pin down like an exact time just because the forward speed has been changing, but it is going to be sometime in that probably late afternoon time. So it does seem like that has backed up a little bit.
Will y'all put these slides out, or will y'all email them out for us, please?
Yep, we did send the slides out to the webinar email, but if for some reason you guys didn't receive the slides, go ahead and shoot us an email and we'll definitely get it out to you.
Thank you.
Do you happen to know when the tornado threat might be greatest to the New Orleans region, the metro region?
Yeah.
So we actually were just talking about that. There's a boundary that's kind of sitting just off the coast right now, and it's just kind of gradually gonna get pushed inward over the next few hours. So I would say it's gonna be increasing over the next couple hours, and then that tornado threat is gonna kind of shift north of the metro eventually. So I would say anytime now over the next probably couple hours, once landfall hits, that tornado threat is kind of just generally going to slowly move more north of the metro as the storm moves away. So we can't pin down like a super specific time, but I would say anytime over the next few hours is definitely the greatest threat.
Great, thank you so much.
This is Tony with Iberville. Will there be another briefing today?
Yep, so we can go ahead and get a 5 p.m. briefing scheduled just like we did yesterday for you guys.
Can you tell us the timing of the tropical force winds, when they will be gone from the North Shore?
One second here, we're gonna have I'm gonna have Danielle jump in for that one because we don't have the
Hey, yeah, so the storm's going to be moving pretty quickly. We expect the tropical storm force winds to kind of start improving almost everywhere. after midnight and then be pretty much completely out of the area by sunrise. So, gradually improving, late tonight basically is what we're looking at.